So I'm Don Bosco Durai. I'm the creator and the PhD member of the Apache Ranger. I'm also the co-founder and CTO of Privacera. At Privacera, we do centralized access governance, which includes scanning the cloud data sources for sensitive information. So if we find sensitive information, we tag and encrypt it. Also, we do central management of access policies. In addition to that, we also consolidate all the audits from different data sources, which we can do compliance reporting out of that. So as a part of today, we're going to be talking about security and governance in the enterprise world. It's going to be a two-part presentation. The first part will be done by Zishan. He's going to be going in depth about how the Unity Catalog works, and then I'll be talking about security governance and some of the best practices of implementing it, and also a quick demo.
Thanks, Bosco. So just a level set product safe harbor statement. Anything that we talk about that is outside of preview or inside of private preview, please don't use that for making any purchase decisions. Have to say that from a legal perspective. So just a level set on kind of the salesy part of most of my talks, right? Most enterprises today, in some way, shape, or form, struggle with data and AI governance. This is not new. For those of you that are customers out there, I'm sure all of you would agree with the statement, and nobody would object to it. There's some reasons for that, but primarily, especially when we start to think about things with the lens of a lakehouse architecture, a lot of this comes down to the fact that we have two disparate, incompatible data platforms. We've got data lakes. We've been landing our data in data lakes. We've got data warehouses. We're doing our querying in data warehouses. We've got different personas and different use cases that kind of fit across these. And then ultimately, when we have these two sources, we have disjointed, duplicative data. When we start to think about governing this data, we've got incompatible models, we've got clunky file controls on storage accounts, we've got ACLs on well-defined objects inside our data lakes or data warehouses, and ultimately what this means is that we have incomplete support for our use cases. And not sure how that happened. There we go. Governance is also fundamentally hard to enforce on data lakes, right? So there are, in general, a lack of fine-grained access controls when it comes to data lakes. You're enforcing things at the file level, right? It's hard to find your data. There's no common metadata layer. Things become also really, really hard to audit. And then to make it worse, there's no one cloud does things in the same way, right? So there's no agnostic cloud, unspecific model for what governance looks like, right? AWS does it one way, Amazon does it another way, so on and so forth. It gets worse when you start to think about asset types, right? Things like dot models and dashboards and different types of assets that live within your data lake that aren't just pure data. And this is where things start to kind of fall over, when you look at applying consistent governance. So this is where Databricks comes in, right? And being the kind of the inventors of the lakehouse architecture and the company that is making the most advancements in that arena, we provide the building blocks for governance of data and AI assets on the lakehouse architecture through Unity Catalog. Right? So this is providing that foundational unified metadata and access control for your data analytics and AI across clouds with the lakehouse. So what does this do? Right? This is helping you to meet your compliance requirements with Databricks by providing some audit functionality. This is providing performance enforcement of access control across all languages and compute types to help increase your productivity. This is also giving you the ability to seamlessly integrate across your partner and your customer ecosystems. And Bosco will obviously talk about that as he steps into his slides in a little bit. So I want to talk about what some of those foundational capabilities are at a very high level. So principally and first and foremost is centralized metadata and user management. There's also centralized data access controls and data lineage, data access auditing, data search and discovery, and secure data sharing with Delta sharing. So we'll talk a little bit about each of those in detail. So first, centralized metadata and user management. Without Unity Catalog or prior to Unity Catalog, each workspace was effectively its own monolithic entity, right? User management and a meta store existed at a workspace level. So what did this mean? This meant that if you wanted to have multiple workspaces, you were duplicating users. You'd have multiple SCIM connectors pointing and pushing users to one place, to another place. You'd have disparate views of your meta store and your access controls that lived in different arenas, and you have to make sure that they were kind of constantly kept in sync. With Unity Catalog, all of these kind of move up to one level, right? So user management, meta store, access controls, they are able to be applied across multiple workspaces. In addition to that, I talked a little bit about access controls and centralized access controls. So, and I mentioned I made a comment earlier about with with, across individual clouds, whether you're working with Microsoft or AWS or what have you. Every cloud infrastructure, every cloud storage mechanism provides its own version of what governance looks like. It provides its own APIs, right? And this is kind of where centralized access controls come into play, because we wanted to use and provide a common vernacular, a common semantic for dealing with access controls across multiple clouds. And we chose to do this with ANSI SQL, simply because it's very familiar, but we also allow this to work via APIs, and we also allow you to do this through our UI. So this is pretty straightforward, right? I mean, this is just syntax that if you ever moonlighted as a database admin, you're probably very familiar with, right? Grant some permission scope on some securable object to some principal. In addition to that, we also offer data discovery, which gives you the ability to accelerate your time to value and ensure that your users have the ability to find the assets that they're looking for quickly. And this is available as a unified UI across our different types of personas within Databricks. It also leverages the common permission model from Unity Catalog. So if you can't select something or can't see it, you're not going to be able to find it in search. I think I missed a slide here, and it may have gotten rearranged. I'm going to just flip back up to it. The other thing that Unity Catalog provides that's really, really cool and amazing is built-in data lineage. So this provides end-to-end visibility of how data flows and is consumed within your organization. So if you remember from Matej's slides on his keynote, we had this very, very great demo of all this data, these derivative tables that he was creating, and end result was that you're able to see this information in the lineage UI. What you're also able to do is pull this data out via APIs. You're also able to actually query this via system tables. So this is a big game changer for us. I could go into the mechanics of how this works. I'll happily explain it to you after Bosco's talk, but it's pretty phenomenal in terms of what we're doing. We're capturing all of this incredible metadata from every step in your DAG of your Spark queries and submitting it and doing a whole bunch of analysis to be able to pull out all these incredible associations. This also helps you, understand how your data is being used. So if you have notebooks that are using individual data sets and you want to understand the impact analysis of, say, destroying a data set or removing a data set from use, you have the ability to see that clearly with data lineage, something that no other data platform provides. All right, so I'm going to flip through here and talk briefly about what's next, and then I'm going to hand it over to Bosco. So what we're providing next, and hopefully similar to what you've seen in other presentations about Unity Catalog, attribute-based access control, right? So the ability to apply tags to data assets and then create policies on those tags, right? So this allows you to kind of get into the realm of expressive access control and move to a place where you can simplify your access control at scale. In addition to that, we'll also be offering, and this is beyond the capabilities that we offer today with dynamic views, row filtering, and column masking, right? So that would give you the ability to use SQL functions to create row filters and column masks and apply that to your tables and then tie that to users and or attributes. So real quick before I pull Bosco on stage, I just want to talk about the overall story that we have with our partners, particularly partners like Privacera and others, is that we are better together, right? Where we have where we lack in our solutions or offerings, our partners come in and they fill those gaps. And this is, in general, it's a go-to-market strategy for all of Databricks. And in this case, Bosco will talk about some of the specifics. So Bosco, why don't you come on board? Thank you.
Okay. So let's start with the question, like, why do we need to extend Unity Catalog, right? I think when you're in the enterprise, right, you're not really only using the Databricks lakehouse. You have a lot more data sources out there, right? So when it comes to compliance, you have to make sure that you're able to apply it consistently across all the data sources, the tools, and access pattern. To give a little bit of a high level, now what we are looking at is, right, you have data ingestion tools, you have data transformation tools, you have lakehouses, you have a bunch of BI tools. So when you look into this picture, right, the same data has been accessed by different tools for different purpose. And now you have to make sure that all the compliance policies are applied consistently. And that's a pretty big challenge, right? So that's why, if you see the bottom two rows, right, to get an enterprise level data governance, you need two things. First, you need a data catalog, like a global data catalog, which can pull the metadata from the underlying services. In this case, it is going to be Unity Catalog. And you should be also able to pull the lineage and tie it in a bigger picture, right? The second thing that you need is a centralized access management tool, which can push the policies to the underlying data services, right? So in this case, we'll be pushing into the Unity Catalog. So, so what's the advantage of Unity Catalog, right? So before Unity Catalog, as Zishan mentioned, there were multiple workspaces in Databricks. Each of them had their own users, their own metastore, and you had to literally manage the policies on each one of them, right? With Unity Catalog, what they did was they centralized the entire metadata into a single account, and also the users are in a single account, in the global account. Now you can manage the policies one place. And they also went one step further, right? If you take all the databases today, generally they are like a grant and revoke, which is really good for a DB admin. But when it comes to integration, like if you're using application, it's extremely painful. So with the REST API, you have a pretty rich set of features. Like you can send a payload, JSON payload. The response is also a nested JSON payload, which is easier to parse. So what we have done is we built our solution on top of Apache Ranger. So Apache Ranger is like a framework where you can set different set of policies. You can set table and column level policies. You can have tag-based policies. You can have attribute-based access control policies and rollover policies. And it gives a nice interface where you can write a small plugin and you can pull the policies and push it down wherever you want to. So what we have done is written a connector for Unity Catalog, which takes the policies from Ranger and pushes it. It's pretty straightforward. And with the Unity Catalog API, we just had to do it one place. We don't have to do it in each and every workspace. So those who don't know about Apache Ranger, so Ranger was created almost like 10 years ago with the intention it will be a centralized access management suite. Right? It was primarily started with the Hadoop to begin with, but eventually it grew into the cloud also. Right now, all the major cloud providers like AWS, GCP, and Azure, they adopted a Ranger. So the EMR ships the Ranger plugin, HD Inside and Dataproc. They actually do a managed service for Ranger also. Right? And other commercial vendors like Starburst, they also do a managed services of Ranger. Right? So one of the challenges when it comes to governance is you're as good as what services you can support. Right? So if you don't have enough services, then you are limited to just the top tier one. The advantage of Apache Ranger is since it's already been adopted, it's open source. Almost most of the open source projects, whether it's a Trino or Dremio or even Spark to some extent, gives us enough hooks to write your own plugin. So there's also the first-class Ranger plugin for PrestoDB also. Then since it is open source, we know a lot of our customers have written their own plugins. Right? They are done for their own API services, to even Jenkins. So it's all open. It's up to you how you want to do it. Right? One of the good things about Apache Ranger is it is a framework, right? And it doesn't impose a specific security model on the data source. Instead, you can define the security model into Ranger itself. So if you take Unity Catalog, it has a 3-level namespace. So you have a catalog, you have a schema, you have a table. So you can define the service definition in JSON, and you can push it into Ranger admin. Then once you push it in, it'll take care of everything. You can manage the policies. It'll give a single endpoint to set the policies. You get all the niceties about tag-based policies and attribute-based policies, everything out of the box. And the way you can integrate is like this is the left-hand side is the YAML representation of the Ranger policy. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty consistent across the board. So you have a catalog, you have schema, you have table, and the access policy. So what you can do is you can just write a simple connector which will make API calls to Unity Catalog. And as I mentioned, since it's a REST API, it's very well structured, and you can easily formulate it and you can push it. I'm going to talk a little bit about this one also. So another challenge in the data sources is almost everyone give their own auditing, but when you want to try to consolidate, it becomes very painful. So there are two things out here. One is Unity Catalog itself, right? So before Unity Catalog, we had to go to each and every workspace and pull the audits and put it into our repository. Now with Unity Catalog, it does it for us. It puts in the central location, and we just pull it from there. The second about Ranger is it has normalized even the audit format. So regardless where are you pulling from, it will normalize to the same structure, the same JSON structure, and it is available for you to write your own reports on top of it, or you can use a UI in Ranger. So I'm going to be spending a little bit more time on this slide. This is primarily about how you're going to be implementing security governance, or enterprise security governance. Right? When it comes to Unity Catalog, any data services, they can provide all the fine-grained access control you want to, right? But if you don't use the right way, then it's literally more pain than gain, right? One of the things that I've seen personally is when it comes to access governance, most of the people, including me, we get a little bit more paranoid, and we try to overly complicate it, right? So what I've done out here is I came up with like 3 zones, red, yellow, and green, based on the complexity, right? So red is the least complex, but also the most restricted area, right? And in the red zone is where you're going to land your data. You're going to have your automated discovery tool running to scan and identify sensitive information. You're going to encrypt it and at rest. Okay? And you're also going to create a tags and push it to data catalog. In the red zone, ideally, you should not give any user permission. The only permission you should give is for machine users or service users. So in that way, you can literally sandbox them. Okay? And ideally, what you'll do is you'll carve out a small portion in your lakehouse, and you'll isolate it and lock it down and make sure that no one gets access to it. Right? Then once you have encrypted it at rest, you can move to the next zone. This is where the coarse-grained permission comes in. Typically, at this zone, you have the data engineers, right? So data engineers generally need access to the raw files. So what you do is you give them much coarser level permission. So if you're using Unity Catalog, so Unity Catalog has a concept of storage credentials, and you can use that to create folder level permission in the object store on the ADLS. So that's a pretty cool feature, right? And you're doing it at the central level, right? So if you're running a Python, PySpark, now you can access these folders or files using a PySpark and even create tables out of it. And also in this layer, you'll start seeing that since there's a user involved, they're going to start using more tools, right? They will have a S3 browser to browse the files. They may use Databricks clusters and use PySpark, right? And they will start creating tables out of it, right? So you have to give a little bit of generous permission for them. But avoid trying to give fine-grained permission out there. Don't try to give column level or table level or row level permission at this zone. The reason is these folks have access to the file. So it's extremely difficult to implement fine-grained permission if you give permission to the underlying file system. So at the SQL level, you can do it, but if I can read the file, it doesn't really matter. But if you had done the phase 1, the red zone properly, that means the file's already encrypted. So even if they open and read the file, they will not be able to misuse it. So it's recommended to make sure that by the time you come here, the files, the data are encrypted at the field level. Okay. And the output of this zone would be the consumable data sets, the tables and database, and the most structured form. And that gets into the green zone, right? So this is where your end users are going to come in, right? You will have different type of end users. You're going to have data analysts, you're going to have data science, and all of them, right? And they will be accessing this data for different reasons. And you'll also be responsible for enforcing all the compliance and privacy policies, right? So this is an area that you have to make sure that all the data is in a data catalog, has been categorized so that the data owner or data steward knows how to interpret it, how to give policies if someone is asking, right? So the suggestion out here is you should, instead of trying to do it yourself, which I know most of the customers try to do it, use some good tool, right? So in that way, you can make the life of your data owners and data stewards very easy, right? Some of the central access management tool can give you a way to set policy at a data set level and then translate it into fine-grained resource-based policy at the Unity catalog, right? And they can also make you help your life in having a consistent policies across the different data sources, right? So in this zone is where you have a lot of other BI tools, others coming in. So you have to be a little careful about the BI tools. Some of the BI tools, they also cache data with them. So even though your database may have a good policy, but your dashboard may not be able to enforce it. So you need to look into some of those things. There are going to be a lot of compliance policies, like you might have to filter out data depending upon what regional compliance may be out there, right? So I'm going to give a demo on this one, but this is one of the core things I want you guys to take it away, because this will help you guys to build a good security governance. The last one is audit. Regardless where the data is, which zone it is, you have to audit. You have to make sure that you have a strong audit framework which can collect all of them, and then it's used for both. So if someone is misusing the data, you can find out, and also there are compliance requirements which will you're required to give evidence. So with this, I'm going to switch to the demo. I'll try to be a little brave and see whether I can do it in live. Okay. So I'm going to see whether I can follow the same pattern. So I have a file in EC2. I'm going to upload it to a S3 location. So I'm going to upload to a sales data. Then I got one more file, which is customer data. Now, the way I set it up is sales data has less PI information, while the customer data has a little bit stronger one, like there's SSN and other things. So this is what I was talking about, the red zone. So ideally, what you really want to do is be able to go and scan them automatically and tag them, okay? And you also can start enforcing compliance policy up at this point level. So if I go to out here, so I have a data zone which has the location where I copied a file, and I have a policy out here says if any file is copied to the location, scan it. If it has credit card or SSN, then quarantine it, don't move to the yellow zone. And also, if there's an email, then you also do a format preserving encryption, right? So you store at the encrypted format. And then everything is good, then you move to the bronze thing. I'm trying to use the same terminology which Databricks use, right? So now if I go out here, I can see the classification. So this is the sales data. So it has already been tagged with person name and city. I have a quarantine. So this one has SSN. So it is put in the quarantine one automatically. Right? So you can see the SSNs and email addresses. So it got tagged out here. Right? Now, so this is the red zone. Now we'll change the persona. We'll go to another user called Rick. So Rick is a data engineer. Right? So now it is in the, technically right now it is in the Databricks Lakehouse, right? So now Rick wants to read the file. He can come and read the file from here straight away. So you can see the data. So we also have a file browser. If he wants, he can go and browse the file, what is available for him. He can even read it out here. At this point, you have to remember that, as I said, he has a coarser grain permission. That means he can read the file, right? Then I can show you quick how the policy is set for this person. So for Rick, he has a more generous policy. So I have a policy for data engineering, and it says that Rick can see all the files under the data under bronze. And so Rick is the user, I can do everything. And also I have a policy in Unity catalog for the data engineering team. So for him, There's a sales catalog. He has full permission. He can create any database he wants, a table, and he can drop it as he wants. So the way I've done is I've given him a more generous permission, right? So anything that he does is also audited. So I can go and check that what Rick did, what files he opened. He opened an S3 file. He might have done some SQL query. And if he had tried to open some file which is not part of the, try to open from the landing zone, you'll be denied. Right? Okay, so this is the yellow zone. So I'm going to go to the green zone. Okay, so here I have a user called Emily. So she's a regular data analyst. And so this is a table Rick created out here. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I'm going to recreate it anyway. So it's going to drop and recreate it. I'll do it here. Okay. Yeah. So all this is happening within the Unity catalog. Now this is, since the 3-level namespace, this is the structure and this external thing going to the bronze one. So I'm going to run the query out here. So the way the Ranger works is interesting. You don't have the resource to be present for the policy to be created. You can pre-create a policy. So as soon as the resource is created, in this case, it will apply it. Right? So that is how it works. It'll take a few seconds. Actually, was delaying the thing, but it does it pretty quickly. Another good thing about Unity Catalog is, even though I set a policy on one place, I can have more than one workspace. And I got another workspace, same user, Emily, and she can run the query right now. And she'll get the same result. Right? Yeah. So we'll do one more use case. So now she got it, but she has access to everything in the table, right? So now you want to apply compliance policy, right? And there could be many of them. So I'm going to use 2 or 3 of them. One is, let's assume there is a compliance requirement that you cannot see customer data that doesn't belong to the country that you belong, you are. So I'm going to create a dynamic rollover filter policy for this one, and I'm going to use attribute-based access control. So so Ranger is pretty straightforward. I already pre-created a policy, but I disabled it. Right? So for this catalog schema table, by the way, this is a good thing about Ranger. The moment I create a service definition, it'll all come up out here. So what I'm doing out here is I created a country equal to user.location, where location is the user attribute, while country is the column in the table. Okay, let me save it. Okay, so that is one policy. The second policy I want to do is this name has been tagged as a person name, so I don't want Emily to see that. So I can go and revoke the permission she already has right now, which is a full table, column star. Then instead of that, I'm going to give her a policy with all the columns without name. Okay. I could have created a tag-based policy also, but I'm going to have one more policy for tag, but you can do either way. Right? I will prefer to do a tag-based policy out here, but just for demonstration, I'm doing a column-level access control. Then I have a column called city. For whatever reason, I don't want to show Emily the city, but I want to do some joins. So I want to retain the consistency between 2 tables. So I'm going to do a tag-based policy for this one. And the way I'll do it is I'll do a global tag-based policy. The good thing about a global tag-based policy is regardless which table it is, will apply. So I have this US city and Emily, and I'm going to do an MD5 for the sake of simplicity. Okay. So I got now 3 policies configured. One is the rollover filter. Second is the redacting the name, and the third one is anonymizing the city. So if I run this query right now, this is actually running at the Unity catalog, so level. It has stripped out all the rows which was not US. The city has been anonymized, and the name has been redacted. Okay. So the main thing out here, just so that I know some questions are going to come in, Unity Catalog doesn't support column level right now. So what we do is we actually create a single secure view, okay? And the predicate is attached to it. So regardless which user is running, they all run the same view, but the predicate will be depending upon the user attribute, as well as the tag will be based on the user, right? So if I have a different user and the person has a different permission, you'll see a different result. So that is the end of my demo. So I got 4 minutes. We can open up for question and answers.
People have questions?
Okay. Zisha?
Hi. So in Unity Catalog, we control the access in the groups and roles and grants. And in Privacera also there are policies. So finally will be a union of both which will be applied?
No, so when we, right now we don't do two-way sync. You can definitely do it, it's up to you. So we do one-way sync, that means Privacera is the master. So we push the policy into Unity Catalog. And Unity Catalog enforces it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the way of thinking about that is that, you know, Privacera and our governance partners in general are operating on more than just the lakehouse architecture, right? They're operating on an enterprise scale across the rest of your enterprise. So it makes sense for the model that Bosco is suggesting for the push down, the policy push down model into Unity Catalog if you're using a solution like Privacera.
Yeah. So just to clarify again, so in Unity Catalog, you still need to have the grants, so it's not required if you're using Privacera?
No, okay, the way it works is this is a push down. So the policies are created in Ranger, right? So, but we translate that into the Unity Catalog policies. So that's the beauty of it, right? That's why whether you're using a notebook or using a Databricks SQL or any new things Databricks comes in, Unity Catalog will take care of it. Right. So we don't want to be in the business of trying to enforce it. We want Unity Catalog to enforce it. Yes. Wherever there's a gap, we'll fill it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's the big change with the way things work before to where they work now is, and the Bosco's had this up on a slide, is the expression of policy comes from Privacera, and then the enforcement of policy is handled through Unity Catalog. Exactly.
So, can we apply the policies at unit catalog level? I mean, without using Privacera? Column level masking?
So, okay, everything I showed today is available today in Unity Catalog. Okay?
Okay.
You can do it, right? So, what we have done with the Ranger is we just made it easier for you. So, you can create the view yourself and you can run it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no secret ingredient out here, right? Except for if you know how to create a view, you can do it.
No, generally, I mean, like if you take any other tool like data governance, we can do a policy on the table level, right? Table and column. Here we need to write a view and we need to maintain a table, user table to make access, right?
Yeah.
That's
so. Yeah. So I think.
So what is the new thing in the Unity catalog other than, I mean, the lineage? So we have any like directly apply the table column level masking?
You could show them the view the resultant view syntax, right? So I think one of the things that Bosco was trying to show, and maybe it
we can take it offline.
We can take it offline, but one of the things that's interesting and important about what he was showing is he created 3 different policies, right? And the policies kind of collapsed into one policy, right? So if you think about it organizationally, you might have one organizational policy that says, I cannot ever see a city anywhere, right? For example, right? You might have other policies at different levels, right? Depending on what individual data owners or data stewards would demand or what individual data zones or compliance zones would require. So the problem, right, with I can of course I can write a view to do it, and you're right, you can, and we give you, as I said, we give you the building blocks for it. We do make it relatively easy and easy to apply. But when thinking about an enterprise scale, this is kind of where our partners come in and make things easier, as Bosco is pointing out.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. There are 3 different policies running in the same view. Again, there's a column masking going on, and a redaction going on, and the roller filter. Pretty good. There's a question out there. Sorry.
I believe we have time for one more.
One more question.
So for the file level, like permissions with Privacera, with kind of taking care of that, or that's something outside of this, outside of that? File level.
So file level is, see, all the enforcement is done in Unity catalog. Remember that one, right? Because the way the Unity catalog works is the IAM role is not in the workspace at all. It's at the global level. So the policy, you had to set the policy at the storage credential out there and give the user permission. And then when the RIC runs it, he says, okay, RIC has the permission to get the IAM role. So for that particular folder, you'll get the STS token. So that is a little bit of a detailed implementation of Unity catalog. But the policies are always had to be on the Unity catalog. I'm not sure I answer your question or not, but we can take it offline outside. Okay. Yes, oh, sorry, that is what we are doing, yeah. Okay, we are done, we'll be outside. So if you have any questions, more than happy to answer.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.